Animal rights campaigners are accusing the government of a backflip on safeguards for live exports following the release of a policy discussion paper on Friday. The discussion paper outlines 4 options to govern live sheep exports to the Middle East from next year. Only one of those proposals includes adopting a new heat stress guideline developed after disturbing footage was leaked last year. Harvey-Sutton is the CEO of Australian Livestock Exporters Council and joins me now. Thanks so much for your time. It feels like there's been so many inquiries and investigations into the live sheep and cattle trade over just the last year or so. Why do we need another one?
Oh, thank you for having me, Laura. Look, the reason we need another inquiry is because this is an incredibly complex area, the issue of heat stress on vessels. What we've seen is significant change for the industry over the last 18 months or so. And what this process will do, will put forward at the end of it some regulatory outlines and procedures that will see the trade being sustainable down the track.
Well, there's effectively been a ban for the last 4 months or so. In that time, has the Middle Eastern market looked elsewhere to fill that void?
Yes, and let's not forget that it was exporters themselves that put forward an initial 3-month moratorium. We knew there'd be the possibility of competition entering those markets, and we have seen that with consignments of sheep coming from Romania and South Africa. But nonetheless, we trade with very high quality animals, and we're also the only country in the world that has animal welfare requirements in market. So, you know, we stand by how well we do things, and we think that we'll have a long, continuous and sustainable trade to the Middle East.
So can you quantify how much the ban has affected exporters from Australia, or it's negligible?
No, look, we have seen a reduction. Last year we exported around 1.1 million sheep. That's a reduction of about 400,000 to 500,000 as I understand it. But that is still a significant number. I mean, if you look at the figures from a recent report by Mercado, the live export trade, you know, it's 30% of WA producers' turnoff, and that figure will still be around that mark, even with a shortened export period.
You say you stand by the animal standards, welfare standards. I mean, there has been a ban for the last 4 months. You're now looking at heat stress guidelines. What is the preferred option of exporters, to have these guidelines in place? Or are you pushing for those guidelines not to be in any, or compulsory, let's say?
Well, no, that's not right at all. What we're looking to do is put forward a solution that's based on science, and I'd be urging all stakeholders involved in this process not to get ahead of themselves. This is a discussion paper. It is very open. If you have a look at the discussion paper, it does allow parties to put forward alternative options from what's been put forward, and we'll be working up the most rigorous solution that we think we can put forward based on science. But we do think that there is a place for regulation in the industry, but it must be science-based and it must put animal welfare at the fore. So we are supportive of, you know, a moratorium, which is what we put forward last year.
So in that moratorium, during that time, you say exporters basically self-imposed this ban. What have you fixed?
Oh, well, it's actually quite interesting. After the McCarthy review last year, there was a recommendation that reduced stocking densities come in place, and over the shoulder periods of that hot period where the moratorium was in place, and we saw record shipments. I mean, we're talking sub 100 mortalities, and now mortality is not the right measure, and we're committed to moving towards animal welfare indicators rather than mortality as a measure of the success of the voyage. But the improvement in the industry since last year has been fantastic, and you know, it's something I know exporters are committed to making sure that we do continue to improve, and we think that we can have a really sustainable trade. So that's what we're looking to get out of this process.
Ultimately, was it the whistleblowers and that footage that was brought to the Australian public's eye that made those changes effective?
That's true, and we'll never walk away from the Awassi. We'll never walk away from it. It was awful. It was a terrible animal welfare outcome, and you know, I still am distressed by the footage. So regardless of where the footage came from, it happened. But nonetheless, there is a process now in place, and we've got an opportunity to make sure that we do get things right, and that's certainly what we'll be aiming to do.